Welcome back to BlockTV. Time for Blockchain on Booze. It's that great moment in the week where we gather the wheelers and dealers of the sphere and have them answer questions while they try to stay sober. Today, the victims and guests from left to right, we are with, yet again, so happy to have Jaguar Advocat, head of JAG Lawyers. There we have it. Right next to her, Liat Aronson, founder, chief strategy officer, CSO at Horizon Labs. Lovely to have you back. The one man on this panel, Nir Hirschman, CEO at Nir Hirschman's PR. That never happens. The ratio, and of course, the returning, we missed you, Yael Tamar, CMO and partner at SolidBlock. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Folks, I want to hit you guys though with, and this is a bit of a surprise, with what is leading the headlines in the sphere. It's a bit of a surprise because we didn't send you this in advance, but never mind. Binance, ladies and gentlemen, in the headlines today, the world's largest crypto exchange by trading volume is in trouble. Let's have a listen.
CoinDesk with insider details on the Binance hack that saw 636 files containing users' KYC information leaked to the public, along with the alleged conversation between Binance CGO Ted Lin and the hacker who claims to have 60,000 of these files.
Make it a long story short. Binance was hacked several months ago. Now they were rehacked. It's like the hacking of the hack. That hacker, who seems to be an incredibly profound man that goes by the name of Gordian M, distributed hundreds of images of individuals holding their IDs and pieces of paper written with Binance 022418, alleging that the data presented was hacked from the exchange. Binance said that's not true. CoinDesk reporters, journalists double-checked already several of those people whose photos and numbers are on Telegram, and 3 have said that they were Binance customers. Yes, shoot.
I'm just running a class action against another U.S. giant, very specifically about a hit or a damage to privacy thanks to such a hacking. Not a crypto company though, but still. And that's very similar. And our privacy is something that we give away so easily. And we're not expecting that to happen with financial institutions such as exchanges. More specifically, not with our KYC information. That's why we're giving all our information.
That is, look, if you look at the pictures, which are, I mean, the scrolling through, yeah, I know it's terrifying. The scrolling through Telegram, clearly posting it on something that, by the way, cannot be traced. Wow. That's awful. I know, that brings to mind, I'm sorry to say, Cambridge Analytica, that brings to mind a lot of those things, and it's so easy. What does this do as we're heading towards legislation to this sphere?
I think first of all, what we're seeing in the past 2 years, we've been seeing a lot of hacking to crypto exchanges. The main problem is that you have those big financial institutes that they're not regulating themselves. They don't have the same history that banks has, and it seems that there are big problems with it, and we're seeing a lot of leaks. Actually, we have been seeing a lot of leaks, not only in crypto exchanges, but we've been seeing it at Equifax. We've been seeing it. We've been seeing it in a lot of places. But the problem is that our sphere is a bit more sensitive. And what I think is, first of all, that exchanges will need to know that they're being targeted on a daily basis, and second, they will have to harden their security. The regulators will have to look more thoroughly into it, and will have to start doing business differently.
And let me ask you this: if I look at this, and I'm not from within the sphere, the first thing that comes to mind is I want to regulate the living heck out of exchanges, but that's something that goes counter the fact of the entire sphere. What does one do?
Well, you have to find a balance, and you have to have things like listings or ratings. So I usually go to Cointelligence, their exchange rating, to look, and they have things like trust and security, and they go in depth to see if like a team has a good security background. I would go as far as checking their licenses, and obviously exchange is a financial institution for everything. Binance is registered in Malta. Almost none of these exchanges that we hear about, the hacking and so on, registered in the US. As much as we hate the regulation, the stifling of the crypto industry in the US, at the end of the day, when I do exchange, I go to Bittrex or some other US-based
But and here's the problem with that, which by the way, I do the same thing in different genres, but and the risk of abusing her as a reference constantly, my 85-year-old mother will not. Okay, neither will my sister, who couldn't give a damn. What is the other? If we want mass adoption and we want to get this to the masses, right? We can't expect everybody to just go and do their own research to that limit, right?
To me, it seems like, I mean, Horizon is a privacy-focused blockchain. We spend a lot of time thinking about that. But I think to me, it's more about, part of this is actually a result of regulation. This is a KYC actually initiative. So it's actually regulation led. But the problem is it's one layer above that. And I think what probably, and also maybe anathema to this sphere, is there needs to be some kind of common ground and getting together in order to be able to safeguard find ways to work together
common
to
ground
safeguard
across the board with exchanges.
Exactly.
Yeah.
To be able to safeguard certain information. If privacy is so important, and that I think is so much what this is all about, then everyone needs to go up a notch and also work together in order to do it. I don't think it's going to be one exchange that is more secure than the others. I mean, that could be. You need to spend a lot of resources to get that done, and I think one of the beauties of blockchain is actually how do you decentralize that, and how do you actually share the resource pool and make the margins lower by actually pooling together and sharing that.
Two comments about this particular thing. First of all, I think that it calls for a blockchain-based solution for KYC and for AML purposes, meaning that you might have you have a few startups that are working on this area of zero knowledge proof and blockchain proof in order to get the KYC, AML, and other hidden and other confidential data in order to allow exchanges to use. In order to allow exchanges to use data in forms that do not expose private information. And one another remark on this topic. I think we've been seeing a lot of activity from North Korea, from state-sponsored hackers that have been hacking crypto exchanges all around the world. And I think that crypto exchanges has to know that they're being targeted with hacker sponsored with hacking that is sponsored by countries, so meaning that they will have to.
But are you buying this North Korea shit?
We have already regulations.
I don't know.
At least in Europe, we have the GDPR, and we have specific state-related in the States and in other countries, in Israel as well. We have privacy and databases, privacy regulations already
in place.
They're in place, and the only point is that you have to comply with them. And it's part of what I do. I prepare companies to comply with the GDPR requirements. And I maybe had Binance maybe complied better with those kinds of regulations, this might have been able to be avoided.
You want to say that? Yeah.
I don't know if this necessarily affects everyone or should affect everyone. Does your 85-year-old mother go on New York Stock Exchange or NASDAQ or anything like that? Or maybe even, stock trading app?
No, and I love the fact she just learned how to use emojis.
So that's the point. The point is that crypto, as it is used right now, is used as an asset, as a digital, security of sorts that people are holding to profit from it. Like every time I try to use crypto the way it's supposed to be used, like by my employees or get paid from clients, it's above my head. They wanted to pay me in USDT. I have to go and get it into my American bank account. It's just
it's hell.
It's hell. So BTC is the only way to get paid right now. Now, so exchanges shouldn't necessarily serve the public to get their crypto into fiat. So, the normal life, you go and you take money out of an ATM if you need money or you use your credit card. It should be much more simpler than that. So now we do have solutions of crypto to credit. So maybe exchanges, are relevant only to those that are there to trade.
The exchange, Binance is huge. That's the other thing. Binance is the largest exchange by volume, but by far. And not operating obviously in the Western Hemisphere, but if I'm a client, I look at that. The first thing I want to do is sue, no?
Oh yeah.
I'm so happy you mentioned that. I'm so happy you mentioned
Class action, Dr. Jaguar.
I think the business of
I'm
this.
not saying it,
No,
but
seriously though, the fact that they've been hacked is that they're a symbol. They're like a logo of exchanges. They're the largest, at least in Asia or in general.
Right.
And to hack them, it's actually saying everybody that it could be saying many messages.
the biggest this can be done.
The biggest can be done, can be hacked, then everybody can be hacked. That's one thing. And second, look at what the hacker has done. He didn't just steal this to make money off of it. He stole this to show everybody off that he did it. And not only that, he didn't use other data. He used the KYC, the notorious by some of the people's community
and
people.
dump them all online.
And exactly, meaning that maybe I think it's a message against KYC by anarchists or whoever thinks otherwise. So maybe it's showing the regulators, hey, you guys are requiring KYCs, but look what we can do with
Look what
that.
this can happen.
KYC
Exactly.
is BS. There's a message.
Yeah, it's like, that's a
I think that's
message. I think
clearly
it's very symbolic. Sorry.
Okay.
No, I totally agree.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a perfect time then to move on to the man who thinks that Bitcoin is God. But how much Bitcoin, folks, is too much? Okay, that's Anthony Papagliano, longtime Bitcoin evangelist.
He thinks he is God.
Yes, I know. So many men do. Sorry, Nir. Crossed into the mainstream studios of CNBC at the beginning of the week to explain yet again the power of Bitcoin, the result, a very public telling off of the pump. Let's have a listen.
Right? It's not personal opinion. It's not somebody else's opinion. The math suggests that it is non-correlated to negatively correlated to major asset classes.
How much of your own dough is in it?
Yeah, over 50% of my net worth is in Bitcoin, and I don't plan to sell
I
it.
forbid that. That's insane.
You forbid that.
That breaches everything about diversification and investing. That's crazy.
How much of your net worth is in the stock market?
In any one stock, never more than 5%. In any one sector, never more than 20%. I teach this stuff. You never go beyond concentrations of that nature. 50%? Shame on you. That's nuts.
Shame on him?
He said, I forbid it.
I know. That I love. That the guy who don't know is like, I forbid it. Who are you? But I forbid it.
There's an assumption, though, that if you hold all your holdings in Bitcoin, that means that it is equivalent to one share. I think maybe the other perspective is that Bitcoin does not represent a one share. It represents maybe, because it's so decentralized, maybe it's the CPM model of holding a very diversified investment holding.
Why weren't you, seriously, why weren't you in that studio, I gotta say? Yeah.
I think the main problem is the message, because if you're talking about a multi-millionaire person that has so much money that he can lose it, he can lose.
He doesn't care.
5, 3, 10, $20 million, and that will be fine. But the problem is that we've been seeing it at the bubble at 2017 at the Bitcoin embassy here in Tel Aviv. We've seen people that were selling assets in order to buy Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. They've been taking loans. They sold cars, and this is something that is very dangerous. We have to look at the reality, and at least when we're holding crypto assets, we always need to know where our words are going. So people should hold enough crypto that if they lose it, nothing will happen. They need to hold as much assets that they can lose, and
But what you're talking about is
not risk themselves.
I agree with the premise of what you're saying. First of all, if you have so much that 50% and losing 100% of it doesn't mean
Also, if you
anything,
have very
then
little.
then
50% is nothing. Maybe he has $5,000 in the bank. You don't know.
okay, let's just
And
do
that's a bit more dangerous.
himself.
I'm assuming that he has a lot, and that losing 50% of it would still leave him another lot. So that's fine. But you need to think about it also in terms of, I think the message of what he's saying, and that's the interesting thing to think about, at least think about, and I'm not saying that everyone should do 50-50 on their assets, but the interesting, what he's talking about is the correlation. Look, the stock markets are bubbling around, and we've all been waiting maybe 4 years, but we've been waiting for the big tank. It's gonna happen, because at least someone my age knows that it does happen.
25?
Well, if I was 25, maybe I wouldn't know. But I'm not. And so I know that it does happen. And in a kind of a winter is coming thing, I don't know when it's going to come, and obviously nobody does, and that's part of what's going on, at least in the last 4 years. So, but I think that lack of correlation is something really interesting, because if you look at how you diversify your funds and you say, okay, well, I want to put this and this and this and this and this and this, it's all tied. Real estate is tied to stocks, is tied to everything else. And if there's one thing that is not correlated to that, well, that's interesting. So I think that's my message from Pompliano. I say, that's something to take home. It doesn't mean that I'm going to do 50% of my...
That's because you're not the public. When we're talking about retail, when we're talking about people who has real job, real salaries, and they're putting a lot of money into crypto, that tends to be a bit more dangerous than it should be. Because 30% tumble, which when we see Bitcoin or Ethereum or any other cryptocurrency tumble in 30%, we're like, okay, that's crypto, that's fine by us. But for a person that took $100,000 and put it on those cryptocurrencies, it's something that
okay, well, it might be a difference between us. Look, I'm not purporting to take responsibility for everyone's diversification and portfolio management. I'm just saying it's an interesting thought to think there is some place to put money that might not be correlative to everything else that's going on in the stock market. That's the only thing that I take from it. If I translate that, that's not going to be for me to put 50% of my holdings into crypto, but I think it is something to think about. I think that's the only thing.
Guys, we all have 50% of our holdings in the stock markets, because via our pension funds, we're holding millions of shekels in the stock market already. And that is quite volatile as it is. So is it not nuts to put 50% of our holding in shares? It's kind of the same.
Look, that's one thing. If I were Pump sitting in that studio, and I think that's what he tried to say, it's that. Though I tend to agree with you that there is some form of responsibility, social responsibility. Because people who, everybody thinks and dreams of making a quick buck, of making free money. We know that usually doesn't happen unless you're the 1%. And we're not. And so people selling, I'm assuming that those people who sold their cars and did all that back in 2017 will never touch Bitcoin again, right?
I think some of them has this tendency to gamble, so we might see them again.
Gambling.
It's gambling. It's actually
gambling.
But we saw, you have this Bitcoin ATM with you can actually put banknotes in it, you can actually put bills in it, and it gets you some Bitcoin to your app and to your phone. And you saw those huge lines. You saw like 100 people in a single day trying to buy Bitcoin. And
the age of FOMO.
And when we saw that, we knew that something's going wrong. And the problem is that you need to be responsible. He was talking on CNBC, not in this, in this closed circuit or something, or a lecture for qualified investors.
No, he's talking to a massive amount of people.
He's talking to the mass.
He's talking massive amount. Yes, shoot.
Back to what Jaguar said. I obviously disagree with
50% of your assets.
Yeah, because this whole notion of comparing Bitcoin to a stock market. Why? Because Bitcoin at the end of the day is technology that people believe in, blockchain or a decentralized manner of currency. So to me, in my eyes, it's just a single tool. And this specific tool, it seems to correlate with some things we know about when people have this currency need, or they can trust their local currency in countries like Venezuela, China, and so on. They pump money into Bitcoin. In the U.S. now they're thinking they're going to have restrictions on arms, so people go out and buy arms. So things like that. So in this case,
they'll never have restrictions.
5%.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yes. At least in the next 5 years.
Right.
Yeah.
So his recommendation, the CNBC guy, the Shark Tank guy, was to have no more than 5% of your portfolio in one asset. So in my mind, Bitcoin is that one asset, just like a stock of a company would be.
In that respect. And speaking of the United States and what people will do with their money there and what money is going to do to the country, let's roll the President of the United States for our next topic, and it'll lead us right in.
China! Let me ask you about China. China. I go to China. 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 People from China, they love me. Right. China. 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 In China, they say I don't like China. I love China. People think I don't like China. I love China. China. China is the new China, by the way. China. 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 I deal with China. 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 Big league. China. So don't tell me about China. I know China. 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 Whether it's China, China.
So if you went to China and you wanted to get a job in China,
I don't knock China. How could I dislike China? A man from China. China. You have China.
So China, that was, let's talk about China, shall we? Slight obsession there with the President of the United States. Look, the trade war is a real thing that had effects on the mainstream markets this week that showed that the trade war between China and the United States not only is not stopping, but it actually has been elevated. People are saying, okay, Bitcoin will benefit from this galore. We have seen spikes in the price of Bitcoin. How good is this for Bitcoin? Is this what is driving the price, do we think? Or is this just a press hype? Because I'm really considering this of the sphere.
First of all, we're talking about the non-correlation issue. That's the thing. Bitcoin's the new gold for the past 2 weeks. We saw that spike, but I don't think.
Well, also arguably, gold is the new gold.
And gold is the new. Two things happened this week. Gold prices again spiked as people were thinking, fine, if this is manipulated right now like this, and every side is going to take it to the end. It was gold. Bitcoin, is it related? Because the mainstream media is putting those headlines and making that connection.
But whenever there's a major change in the Bitcoin price, we're looking of what just happened around it to try to explain that. Yeah. And we have so many explanations. Remember, several times ago, we thought maybe the Facebook New Initiative was the one. And then we thought maybe the relationship with China were the ones. And then maybe, and then changes in the manufacturing stats of, in the US have made that, or the unemployment rates that were published, or there's so many explanations that you can put. It's very much like technical analysis of shares. I'm not sure.
Say it.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't.
Coffee reading.
Yeah,
Say it.
Tarot cards.
Exactly.
Technical analysis.
Exactly. It's like you can explain whatever as long as you can find a correlation. However, a good statistical knowledge says that if you find a correlation, it has to be stable and repeatable. And
it has to show a pattern.
Exactly.
It has to show a pattern.
For consecutive times, several times over and over again.
Let's launch more trade wars with more countries. And
for example.
It's on the way.
Margarita is working.
By the way,
great idea. Let's do it. Let's do a scientific research and figure it out.
I speak Chinese a little bit, so.
Look, and there are people who are saying that do we think that it's actual people hedging their funds into Bitcoin because they think the regular currencies are going bust? Or is this market actually manipulated? I'm going to throw an argument out there, a theory, by also 1%, by several whales who are holding most of the frickin' Bitcoin, and they're manipulating the price. Because that could also be the case.
Well, first of all, I think if I might try to speculate,
and we're speculating,
I would speculate that we're talking about people who has money and think that other people get into will try to hedge themselves in the Bitcoin market, and they're expecting that, so they're buying more Bitcoin, and that's why the prices go up.
It's a good theory, actually.
I think the explanation doesn't matter. We don't know, and we couldn't really know. Whether the answer is A or B of whatever we're speculating here, what we will do with that knowledge? As long as it's not substantiated, we can't use that, can we?
And to take it even further than that, which
Please do.
I agree. Like we're okay with that.
Yeah.
Sure.
And it's actually connecting to Yael's point. I think Bitcoin or generally blockchain is a technology, and there's something about this that is, it's a little bit premature, and it's growing into its utility and its use case, and I think that's the thing to watch, and I think that's the interesting thing. So right now, yeah, maybe it's speculative, maybe it correlates, maybe it doesn't, maybe there's a bunch of whales. It's not actually as interesting as what the future of this is and how that usability and that utility will come into it. So I think we're kind of premature.
I agree, but isn't the future of this sphere also dependent on the present and how it's growing?
I'll give you an example for that and for
please.
what you said. There's a book by Dan Ariely called The Rational Thinking, Benefits of Rational Thinking, where he has like people writing some questions in the newspaper and he answers. So there was one question that said, okay, when I go to the restroom, I want to choose a stall. So I think most people are going to go on the first stall, so I'm going to go to the second one. But if I think it further, most people are probably going to think like me. So they're going to go into the second
people actually
stall.
think that way?
So I should go into the first stall.
stall.
So they actually ran some experiments. I can't remember. You're going to have to get the book. I don't want to give it out. No spoilers. So
on this such an interesting topic.
Exactly.
It reminds me microeconomics, my first year in economics. This is, you never know what the effect will be of it.
Exactly. So that's the answer. You just don't know. If you're going to speculate on what people are going to think, if you should go with the crowd, without the crowd, just I think that crypto in general should be used as much as possible for whatever payments, buying stuff, as it should be.
Legal services.
The more of us use it, the higher the price is going to be, and that's it. Let's stop speculating. Let's just use crypto. That's it. We can close the show.
But we need to onboard.
Okay, so we're going. That's it.
I'll do
Thank you very much.
No, but to that point, and I think this is the thing, the more people actually use it, the less the whales would have that impact, right? That's the thing. The more decentralized this decentralized technology actually is,
The less manipulated it will be
the
by a
less
small group of
manipulated it
people.
is. I think that's the point of it.
And that's the whole point of it, and that's why I think the main question, and we're still around it, and one day we'll sit here with, that was mass adoption, but we're waiting for that mass adoption. Now, Nir, sit back. Okay, a report published by fintech firm Bitpanda last week provided insight into the profile of European crypto investors, and guess what? This is still a man's world. For anyone who had a doubt, okay? While prior research has suggested that as much as 90% of crypto investors are male, fresh analysis indicates that the gender distribution among European crypto holders is 78% male and 22% female. In addition, female crypto investors are 30% more likely to be in the top 10% of earners, 21% versus 16% of their male counterparts. Okay, how should we read this? This is one. Second,
Desperate housewives hiding their money.
23% of entrepreneurs, less than 23% of entrepreneurs or startup entrepreneurs are women as well. 23% of board members are women. It correlates with a lot of women's engagement in business in general, and more specifically in more risky or more volatile businesses as they are.
I personally, and I'm going to ask you, Nir, isn't it true? I'm just putting crypto aside for a second. This is my feeling. And we live in the Western world, blah, blah, blah. The glass ceiling is far from being cracked, whatnot. Don't you find that every business has 80% men, 20% women?
Well, at my firm, it's 50%, but then we're doing PR, and it's a women's profession. But no, it's
like
you poor man.
No, it's. You have to look at statistics. So it's something that happens. But what I do think is that I should remain quiet during this topic.
I think you're
that the ladies should talk.
You're like the one man
more in trouble.
You're like digging
The more you're
yourself.
digging yourself in, right?
Okay.
But yeah, how did
they get this statistic? First of all, when you don't know who crypto holders are to start with, it's not really well. Maybe they got the KYCs from Binance. Maybe that's what happened.
Maybe you make
It's
a
from the
survey and you make an
636
analysis.
KYC.
No, they did a
KYC
survey. They took some guys and some girls in different ages, and they said, "Do you hold crypto?" They say yes. Then they said, "Do you earn some money on it?" And they say yes. How much did you earn in the last year? You can also, or in the last how many years. So you can. I would love to see that survey, to start with.
To start with, and then check that survey at the end of the day. And again, Nir, it's not all your fault.
Thank you. Just one more remark about it.
Yes.
Just one more remark about it. I think if you're looking at the percentage of Wikipedia, you can see that there are not as much women as you would expect writing into Wikipedia, and a very thorough research that have been done by Wikimedia Global showed that there is some sort of violent discourse going on in forums, in the internet, and social media, and that deters women from getting into this, from getting into Wikimedia, and from getting into maybe even technological professions. I think it's a very, very big problem. I think it's a matter that we as a society has to see how we we make the environment safe for women to work and to act in. And I think it's something that we have to tackle with all our force, because
I'm even going to give you a little bit of leeway here. It's societal. Also when women come into this world, at the end of the day, we're still living in a world where we put them in pink clothes.
And it was an interesting thing that Nir said. We need to adjust the environment to suit women, and I'm not for this. I'm just saying that we are never trying to adjust ourselves, women, to the society. And I think Nir is actually more correct in that sense, because if the society, the Salon, is too violent, speak in its media and its communication, then it doesn't fit women. I think it's better to correct that environment to be less violent, not just for women, but for us, everybody.
For people.
Men as well. It's not an adjustment for women, it's an adjustment for everybody to take part in.
No, entirely.
I think there are certain stuff that we need to forget about. Certain way of speaking, certain jokes, even the work hours has to be we have to some way adjust it, because even if you have a male parent that wants to pick his kids from the kindergarten, he can't do it because the work hours are different. And I think that our society has to change, because we're losing a battle that we should have won 20 or 30 years ago, and I think this is a matter that we should tackle.
No, entirely.
The white generation will take care of it, because they care more about their personal life than men and women as well.
No, the selfie
Not
generation.
to mention the Z generation, which
Yeah,
are even
yeah, even
more
more.
Yeah,
purposeful.
and
I'm
women
counting
again.
on them.
Yeah, actually.
Having
I've given up in millennials. I don't know what about you. But I'm kidding. Moving on, folks. We're going to get us back to actually our neck of the woods. This is being recorded in the Middle East. An Israeli bank, Bank Hapoalim, is the subject of a new class action lawsuit filed to the Tel Aviv court by a Bitcoin investor who the bank refused to onboard due to his digital holdings. Now, while Israeli law does not forbid deposits that originate in crypto, banks have been leaning conservative and refusing to accept such deposits, claiming, of course, KYC, AML considerations. One thing about this lawsuit, once again, that what's involved here supposedly is Ripple, but the people filing the suit, and this is per internal sources, are claiming that it's Bitcoin. Needless to say, the Israeli courts are yet to receive this as a lawsuit that they will take on. Just we all know that it's so important to be fixed with the details. But for people in the sphere sitting here, how bad is the situation with banks?
Very bad.
How bad?
I'm running against several cases against banks in this matter. And the point is that by banking law, the banks have to give banking services, including receiving fiat money, as long as there aren't any major risks providing there aren't any major risks, proved ones, to show that it comes from any money laundering services or whatever. And my clients are suing the banks via my services, saying that we're plain vanilla, we're reporting for taxes, we're even paying taxes, God forbid, and we want to put our money in the bank. And the banks refuse that. Just to mention, that lawsuit that was handled by a colleague of mine, a great colleague of mine, is a class action. It's not yet a lawsuit. It needs to be approved.
Approved.
It needs but still, I wish them luck.
Can somebody play a devil's advocate for a second for the bank? Well, let me play devil's advocate. You're like,
I could.
No, can't do it.
I could.
I hate banks.
Like, all of us do.
I want a Libra bank right now.
Exactly.
I could,
crypto
but
not related. I don't even if we don't get into the crypto, I think we've got enough of an issue. But please do.
I think there's a story to tell here, because this situation that we're talking about is really Kafkaesque. We're talking about a person who wanted to pay his taxes. He wanted to pay his taxes. He can't get the money into Israel because he can't transfer it from the crypto exchange. So the tax authority, which wanted money from him because he allegedly profits from Bitcoin, they wanted to get the money from him, but he can't get the money into Israel, so he can't get them into the bank. So he can't pay the tax authority. So they took his apartment and his moped and his motorcycle, his little motorcycle that he's been driving. that's something that happens. The other person, Roy Arabi, was interviewed in that particular
There was an article in an Israeli
in
financial
in
newspaper.
Israel. It was also published in
That's my client,
published in many other websites. This guy had to take another mortgage for his apartment. Another guy had to sell a lot of shares for it. Yeah, it's something very problematic. And
Okay, let's put the details aside for a second. When the banks, and I think that's one thing, and we can put the umbrella on it, that even in the States, and one of the issues that people who want to pay their taxes and make money in crypto don't know how to.
And pay attention also, thanks to the cash law, the new cash law in Israel, they can't even get their bitcoins into cash and pay their taxes in cash because you can't pay cash anymore over a certain amount. So it's just impossible. It's a catch-22 thing.
No. And then what happens to that money? I'm just wondering that the money that he can't transfer.
They're using,
Well,
using
what happens-
companies
money in
doing that.
crypto.
They're
Well,
using
how
other
problem
companies.
solved.
They're putting this aside in international banks, and they're using all kinds of tricks. Not my clients, of course, but they're using tricks that they should not have had to use.
I think there are some services that do it. Bits of Gold is.
Bits of Gold did win a lawsuit.
Bits of Gold won a lawsuit, and they're handling this kind of a big KYC. You've been sharing.
No. I love that they're handling this big issue almost.
So Bits of Gold has this service that helps people get their money into the banks because of the KYC and AML problems that banks here in Israel has. But I think that the main problem is that we have a hidden agenda being run by central banks here in Israel, and their hidden agenda is not to accept crypto at all, and that's a problem that courts will have to tackle, and I hope that this matter will be solved.
I'll make him do that. But still, Bits of Gold is a company that I'm in love with. However, in their case, this was a non-presidential decision.
Exactly.
Unfortunately.
I think the courts. One can argue, and I'm theorizing. I don't want to blame the courts. Did that specifically to make it an unprecedented case, so you won't be able to use it.
And in my cases as well, it might as well be that the banks will give up towards the end if they see that they're going to lose, and their condition might be towards my clients, as long as it's we're taking it as a compromise outside court, as long as it's not presidential. And to tell you the truth, for the sake of my clients, I'm not sure what I'm going to tell them to decide, what to take.
So the Israeli Bitcoin Association is now taking a few class actions to court with those issues. We're talking about small amounts of money, and in order to get those precedent, because the problem is that everybody. Their own interest is to compromise just before the
but
guys, so we need the precedent.
No, we need the precedent. I think I have a feeling, raise your glasses because we're out of time, but you have been a phenomenal female-dominated panel. But so this is Blockchain and Booze. I do think that be it Israeli banks or other places around the world will not have a choice very soon, and we're heading that way. Blockchain and Booze. We were BlockTV. We'll be right back.
For more news and updates, follow us on Twitter.